radios or all-in-one water coolers. They're pretty much the same generic design. They all carry the same design. They all go for a 240 or a 360 radiator, 2 fans or 3 fans, 2 pipes and a cooler. So what makes different coolers different from all the others? Why are some better at cooling than the more cheaper brands? Why are the more expensive ones, again, more expensive? And why do companies insist on putting really ridiculous fittings in their boxes? Well, today I'm going to be looking at this. The Deepcool L240 V2. Why is it V2? Let's find out, shall we? Now, let's look at the main points of this. Let's look at the actual tubing itself. Now, these are pretty much a standard length anyway. They follow the same sort of design and implementation as most all-in-one water coolers actually do. It's similar to all of them, to be quite fair. They all follow the same Acertech design. This wire, this pipe, going to the actual cooler right there, where there's a fan inside there, which is spinning around, and then feeds water in one tube and then out the other. It is a 240mm radiator, that is 240 in length. Now, if you're not too sure what size yours is, you can basically go by the size of your fans. I mean, these are 120mm fans, which 2 of them is 240. So it's the same width and length as the radiator. This lovely sticker right there. No warranty, yes. So let's set these fans off for now. Oh, don't get tangled up. Be good to me this morning. Why am I singing? God knows. Right, let's get rid of these. Now, the fin design on this, get your finger out of the way, are really dense. It seems even more denser compacted. Denser compacted? Sounds like a car. More densely compacted than what you will find on the Cooler Master one, which this will be replacing. It all seems to be very well made. I'm going to have to look at what this is all about. I'm pretty sure it's either where they filled it or if you can actually fill it up. I'm a bit hesitant about that. But you do have RGB around the ring. Yeah, wow. An RGB backlit display there. It's not an LCD or an LED display. It's basically just lights up the actual front panel of the cooler. You do have your 3-pin fan header, which I am assuming, I think most of my boards you can actually plug this into a pump header, but I'd rather put this into the CPU fan header to sort of follow the rule, really. And right there is the RGB, which is daisy chainable with the rest of the fans. If we bring a fan back, boom, there's a fan. As you can see there, one RGB male header and another female header, so the two just clip together. This one on another corresponding fan, exactly the same fan, will plug directly into there, removing the need for more headers. And these fans are exactly what I've got already. So what is going to go on with here? Well, to be quite fair, the Cooler Master one, we're going to do a thermals test, although I don't have any sort of CPU benchmarking equipment on the PC, and to be quite fair, the CPU I've got, there's no point because it would probably kill it. So what I'm going to do is go into the BIOS and just look at the temperature idle from the Cooler Master one, which is currently sat in there, right there. Just ignore the towel, and then we'll do the same when this one is installed. Now, this one is going in a new rig, which is there. The Phanteks P400A, which will be replacing that case. So, what's next? Okay, now to summarise on this. Now, I really wish I'd have done this video when I put the cooler into my case. This is not a teardown of a specific product. If you want to see a teardown of how something works, have a look at Gamers Nexus. The guy is a legend for taking things apart to find out how they work. However, because I don't have the fittings to hand, I'm going to really try and explain this. So, bear with me, okay? If you have an AMD socket on your motherboard, which means you will have an AM4 connector, an AM4 bracket, with two plastic things, two little plastic lugs or clips that are either side of your CPU bracket. Now, what they actually ask you to do on this is to unscrew the 4 screws, 2 on either side, and remove that. And that, all you're left with then, is 4 holes where the actual CPU bracket is from the underside of your motherboard. Now, what they ask you to do is you've got 4 little sort of lugs, metal lugs. One's got a rather thick thread, and then like a knurled bit, and another one has a very thin thread underneath. So you screw all 4 of them into the holes on the bracket. There is a 3mm gap between the board and the actual knurled lug on that bracket, which means the actual 4 pins and the CPU bracket at the back is loose. It moves quite freely. There is nothing to adhere that to the top of the main board where the original AM4 supporting brackets were, to sort of give it a bit of resistance in order to stop it from moving. Now, you do get a bit of resistance when you put your CPU cooler onto your CPU by the thermal paste, as we all have experienced at least maybe once or twice. When you remove a cooler, you sometimes bring the CPU with it, so it is quite adhesive. But what if you don't put enough thermal paste on there? What if, for example, your thermal paste decides to dry out or it cracks? The only place for your CPU cooler to go when it loses adhesion is to drop, which means it will fall off or not have proper contact with your CPU. In other words, your CPU will overheat. Now, I reached out to Deepcool via email and just to sort of point out that I'm not really comfortable with the way this AM4 socket fitment is. And the reply I got was, we'll show you a diagram of how it fits. Hopefully this will clear up some confusion. It's the same diagram that's in the instruction manual. There is nothing for the lugs to have any resistance against the motherboard to keep that CPU bracket free of movement. It needs to be secure. The only way I could do it was to get some plastic cable ties, sort of quite small ones in diameter and width and thickness, and sort of put them around the holes, trim them back, but just so they're ever so slightly just taller than the actual post hole on the motherboard bracket, on the CPU bracket. That way that lug has something to adhere to. It has a bit of resistance, which means that it will be pushed against that, stopping the actual CPU bracket from moving. It's not the best idea. I would have happily have kept the original AM4 fitment. It would have been a lot easier, a lot safer. But for this reason they went down that way, and I really don't know why. Although they do assure me it does fit, it works. Well, yes it does. When you've got, thermal paste on your CPU, you do have quite a bit of resistance and adhesion to that. But if you don't put enough on and that stuff starts to dry out, the only place that CPU cooler can go is you got your bracket there, the cooler is there. It can either go like that or like that. Either way, you've not got proper contact on that CPU, which means your CPU is eventually going to start to overheat. And if you don't notice that until it's too late, You might be okay if your PC shuts down because it's overheated. Again, you might not be so lucky. So, to be fair, it is a very well built cooler. It follows the same, excuse me, the same Acertech design. The tried and tested design with rad, pipes, and then the CPU cooler block. It's a tried and tested method. It's been going for years and years. Some companies have tweaked it slightly by putting the pump either in the radiator or on the actual pipes themselves to stop sort of air pockets and just to increase flow of the water. But to say you have to slightly modify the cooler setup itself before you even put it on your CPU isn't exactly a good thing to do. Now, I can't really explain this to Deepcool more than I did because it sort of fell on deaf ears and they didn't seem to understand that there was nothing for it to grab hold of. So I shall leave this with you. It's entirely up to you what you wish to do with this. You can either purchase it and persevere with it. You might be fine when it comes to LG fitment, but when it comes to AM4 fitment, it is slightly dodgy, to say the least. But apart from that, it's on, it's working, and it's doing its job fantastically. So that was pretty much it for that. The review wasn't the quickest. Well, it was the quickest. It wasn't the longest and more in-depth review I've ever done. But saying that, it seems to work, and yeah, it's all going quite fine. So as always, I would like to thank you all for watching this video. If you like this video and you like the content that this channel puts out, and you enjoy the content this channel presents and produces, then by all means please hit the subscribe button, give me a follow, hit that bell notification when you'll be updated of any future updates this channel produces. Shouldn't put my teeth in, I can't get my words out. And breathe. Yep, we're fine. Don't forget that EDT is also on Facebook, it's also on Instagram and Twitter, so if you don't have either of them, and well, what can I say? Just YouTube for you boys.